welcome back. And so from the state of the polity, at least in one part of the state, we move on to the next leg of our conversation, which is a check on the health sector. Your health is important, as our health is important, especially amid these challenging times when we're dealing with, cholera, which has, resulted in a number of deaths, and of course, other epidemics as well. This time around, we're focusing on an immunization exercise that is to commence in Lagos State on October the 19th. And joining us for this conversation this morning, we have Dr. Akinpelu, who is who is an official, immunization program officer, Lagos State Primary Healthcare Board. Yeah, finally I got that right. Dr. Akinpelu, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we understand that these immunization exercise that is to commence covers, a scope of, a number of, health challenges, measles, HPV, and the likes. So we would like you to explain the scope and particularly help us also to understand the current indices of these particular health challenges in Lagos or in specific parts of Lagos.
All right, thank you very much. So just a little background. So Nigeria as a signatory to a global eradication policy of vaccine preventable diseases, and including polio, measles, yellow fever, and other vaccine-preventable illnesses. And of course, as we are a signatory, Lagos State being one of the most populated states in the country, has to also key in to that policy. And as it stands, in Lagos State, we've had several outbreaks over the past years. We've had diphtheria outbreaks, we've had sporadic measles outbreaks, and even yellow fever outbreaks. And this is not just limited to Lagos State, it's actually a countrywide, these outbreaks we've seen them across the country. So what we're saying as a state is, as Lagos being dynamic as it is, we have experienced also over the years some level of vaccine hesitancy. We've also had people who have missed vaccinations due to one reason or the other, be it economic. We also had people who had missed their vaccinations at the point of the COVID-19 outbreak, which we had the lockdowns, and we had lots of people not coming to the hospital due to fears. So it's gotten to the stage when we've come to realize that the best thing we can do is to have this herd immunity. And the only way you can have that is to ensure that, one, for those that have not been vaccinated before, you ensure that they are all reached and vaccinated. And for those who have been vaccinated, like say for measles, which is a 2-dose vaccine, would ensure that for one reason or the other that you've not gotten your second dose, this is also an opportunity for us to reach you. For the adults, we do know that quite a number of us have not been vaccinated for yellow fever. And even if we have been, it's been a very long time ago. And Nigeria is an endemic region for yellow fever. So it is important that we vaccinate every eligible person with this yellow fever vaccine. And what we're trying to do is actually to prevent an outbreak. We do know that Nigeria has been, some years back, declared free from the white polio virus. And this was due to repeated vaccination campaigns. And what we're looking at is if we can do it for polio, then we can do it for measles, we can do it for yellow fever, and even to the next level, we can also do it for cervical cancer. And we do know fully well that if we vaccinate our girls with the HPV vaccine, we're giving them the first layer of prevention for reducing, for battling cervical cancer. So this is where we're coming from as a state. And what we're saying is, let's go out there, let's pull together healthcare professionals who would go to, of course, in all our government facilities, the primary healthcare centers, the general hospitals, the teaching hospitals, even paramilitary and military hospitals. There are places where people can walk in and get these vaccines. Also, schools, churches, mosque, anywhere we have religious gatherings, offices, malls, supermarkets, motor parks, wherever we know that we see people come and gather. These are places that we would have special teams go to set up sites.
And it's free.
Oh, it's absolutely free.
I know that it's usually a lot of challenge getting people. Yes, they're in those spaces. Whether or not they would say, I want to get the vaccination is another thing entirely. And I wonder for you, looking at the data now over the past few years, would you say the hesitancy has gotten worse or better? Are people more hesitant, or they're more open to vaccination? And this is against the backdrop of COVID-19, right? There was lots of flip-flops back and forth. People now coming out to say, well, yes, we acted in haste as a result of the data we had then. Now we have better data, and we think we shouldn't have done this, we should have done that, even pulling back certain vaccines for another reason entirely. Whether you like it or not, it affects that mentality of, oh, are vaccines safe? So what does the data say first about vaccine hesitancy? Is it worse? Is it better? And what are the challenges you face particularly? Because there's again, that issue of we have it available, but then we need to find a better way to communicate to people. So hesitancy, and then the challenges you face in winning people over.
Well, vaccine hesitancy is a big deal.
Is it worse now, or is it better?
Okay, so I would put it as, it's been a graph. Before the COVID-19 outbreak, we had very good success because the hesitancy rate was really reducing. But of course, with all the drama around the COVID-19, the disease itself, the vaccination and all that, there were lots of myths, there were lots of misconceptions that put people at an heightened sense to believe whatever they hear out there. Of course, that increased the vaccine hesitancy. If you remember clearly, about this time last year, we introduced the HPV vaccine into routine immunization. And one of the major challenges we had was rumors that kept coming up concerning the vaccines. And that also was tied to several other reasons, including the COVID-19 vaccination, and that pushed up hesitancy. But we have been putting so many things in place. We've been having community engagements, we've been speaking to stakeholders at several levels, and it's been a continuous activity, because what we've come to realize is this: you must put the right message out there. If not, every other person will put in their own message, and it would increase hesitancy. We also know that we're still dealing with cultural norms.
Right.
We're dealing with religious beliefs, and these are things that the only way we can overcome this is to ensure that the right message is being put out there. It's a slow process, but I would say we are getting there, and our indices are showing that people are starting to embrace vaccination.
What is your biggest challenge in getting it across to people? What is your biggest challenge that you're like, if this were to be taken out of the way, then I think our jobs would be easier?
Well, for me, I would say rumors, myths. There's this thing about bad news, spreading faster. And one thing I've come to realize is this: for every rumor that goes out there, very few times when we try to combat these rumors do we get the same traction as the rumors.
Give us an example of a rumor, so we can maybe deal with it here, use this platform to deal with it.
Okay. Or maybe even a myth.
A myth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take us back to the HPV introduction, and that was a huge one. There was this rumor that came out and said that by one year Sunday, we don't know who that person is. It was just a name. And the rumor was basically telling people that, see, in Lagos, they're introducing the human papillomavirus vaccine. The target age range for this vaccine was girls 9 years to 14. So it now became, oh, yes, we're targeting these girls at the point where they are getting, that's the puberty stage.
Oh.
So that means that we're trying to sterilize them. And it spread like wildfire. It was everywhere. It got to the stage where when we started introduction, I think it was supposed to be a 7-day campaign. Then, of course, we just, because it takes a lot of effort to have people going everywhere vaccinating. And we're like, okay, let's do the 7 days so that we can spread the news, create the demand, then people can come to the health facilities. We had to push the campaign for another 20 days because of that single rumor. And when we tried to, speak to people and say, why is there so much resistance? And they'll say, oh, did you not hear?
Yes, Sunday.
Someone will even play it for you.
Oh, there was a voice note, or was it a video?
Note. Not a video.
No, it was a voice note. And it went viral. It was on every platform. In fact, it kept, for every WhatsApp group I was on, it kept dropping over and over again. That was how much that one rumor spread.
So how did you counter it with evidence? Because this is where evidence now comes in. If someone says that, I have 100 naira on me, I have to show evidence that no, what I have on me is 100,000 naira. You didn't see that coming. But the point I'm making is this. So what kind of evidence did you present to them that this is the vaccine, this is what is in the vaccine, this is what the vaccine does, and this is proof? We've had people take the vaccine. You get what I'm saying? So what evidence did you have to maybe counter that? Again, let's present that to the people.
So we're still speaking on that particular rumor. And so we went back to one, the science. We do know that the vaccine that we're given had 4 serotypes. And it was targeting human papilloma, the genital warts, and the cervical cancer. And we had people understand that, of course, we had the data of how many cases of cervical cancer we have as a country. We had the data, and we proved, and we did present it. We also came up with other countries, both African and non-African, that earlier on, way before we were able to roll out, introduce this vaccine into their own routine immunization schedule. And we could see that there had been a significant drop in the rate of the HPV infection. Because, of course, we do know that we can't, at this moment, equate it to the reduction in cervical cancer rates. But we do know that science has proven that 95% of cervical cancer cases has been tied to an earlier HPV infection. So what that tells us is this: if we can bring down the rate of HPV infection, then definitely we would reduce the burden of cervical cancer. And we could put this out there. It's not hidden. It's been introduced in several African countries. It's not a new vaccine. Of course, it's a vaccine that's been in the market for over 20 years. It's just that this is the first time that in Nigeria it's been added to the routine schedule and it could be gotten free. All the years back, it was in the private sector and people have been paying for it. As of last year, a dose of this vaccine was, give or take, about 30 to 40,000. Right now, it's going to probably about 70,000. But what we said is, the country has come to realize that the burden of care for cervical cancer is way more than actually preventing this illness, which is why we decided to roll out the vaccine. And this is what we've been putting out when we go for our engagements with the stakeholders, so that they can take this back home and educate their people within their area of influence. And these rumors were so bad that even students, so you could get the consent of the mother, but the child will tell you that, I have heard. So we had parents that were like, you're trying to bring conflicts between me and my daughter, because my daughter had heard that this vaccine was going to make me infertile. So, mommy, what are you trying to do?
So speak to us about 3 things quickly. What age? At what age can they take this? I think, is it 9 and 14?
Okay, so let me just run us through for this campaign.
Yeah.
For the measles vaccine, the age range is from 9 months to 59 months.
Okay.
For the yellow fever vaccine, it's between 9 months to 44 years.
Okay.
And the HPV vaccine is between 9 years to 14 years.
So they have different. Secondly, who is funding this? Because someone is actually paying, obviously paying. 70,000 naira per vaccine means that someone is paying. I don't know how much you're going to give out, but that is some money. So who is funding this? And also speak to that point about, we don't even know what is inside this vaccine. I think you tried to talk about that, but just to drill deeper so people understand that this is what I'm taking into my body. Because again, they say it's my body, my choice. So who is funding it, and what is the constituent of that vaccine? As much as you can, if it's not protected or patented.
Okay, so as regards funding, the federal government of Nigeria has there's the Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, who sources for vaccines, and for a country to be able to key into that vaccine pool, you must put in your own funds. So the federal government of Nigeria, counterpart funding, but I'll put it as a sliding scale. At the beginning, of course, partners were doing the bulk of the funding, but now the country has to put in more money so that you can still access these vaccines.
Oh, like a subscription.
And the plan is that by 2028, it's going to be fully funded by the country.
Okay.
So, which is why if you look at the conversation, the conversation has not been going around vaccine production within Africa so as to reduce the costs of these vaccines. And even Nigeria has been one of the countries that have keyed into vaccine production, and it's already a discussion that's currently ongoing. Now, for the contents of the vaccine, when vaccines come, the main essence is to generate an immune response in the body.
Yeah.
And the best way to generate that response is to put an extremely weakened form of that virus into the body, which is what comes through the vaccine. That weakened form has been weakened up to the point where it cannot harm you as a person. All it just does is it tells the body that this is harmful, recognize it, and start to generate your own defenses against it. So that if sometime in life later you come in contact with this same virus, you already recognize it as bad, and you automatically attacks it.
And that's where I'm headed, because that part of the conversation is just as important, both to disabuse the minds of the people for now and in the future. So does the vaccine guarantee a lifetime immunity for the people who are taking it, particularly because HPV is a sexually transmitted disease. So what are the do's and don'ts that you should be attaching to this vaccine intake for those that will be getting it?
So for vaccines, they confer lifetime immunity. There are some clauses. Of course, we do know that for people that are immunocompromised, you will need to give them a booster shot, just so that you can boost the body's sense of immunity to continue to recognize that this is bad, so that it will continue to build its own defense against it. But for a regular person, one shot of these vaccines confer a lifetime immunity. The reason why we do campaigns, we do know that we are now in an endemic region, so we need to give everybody a booster shot, so that then at that level we would be rest assured that we have achieved herd immunity and we are protected.
Now, because of the issue of hesitancy that you raised earlier on, and particularly the concern raised even by the girls that they've heard from their parents, about those myths surrounding the vaccine, are you partnering with schools such that they obtain a written permission from their parents, their wards, and their guardians to enable them to go ahead and take the vaccine?
So for every campaign we do, one of the first things we do is we engage the Ministry of Education, we engage the School Owners Association, and we also find a way to engage PTA associations in those schools, because we need them to get the right message. And yes, message can be spread, but we feel we have knowledge. We can send people to give you the right information so that you can disseminate as at when due. In fact, we even try as much as possible to engage school assemblies, so that, because these girls, to a certain extent, are at the age of assent. You still need the parents' consent, but they can refuse. So they also need to know the value of what the vaccine is to them, both now and in future.
Do you get people, or just on final note, do you get people giving you side eye once you walk into the room or you're about to address and you just say vaccine, you're like, oh, these people have come again? Do you get people giving you side eye? You can naturally feel that.
Well, it's for me, it's a natural reaction,
right,
especially when you're having a conversation around what people do not fully understand. So but more often than not, by the time you get into the conversation and they start to see reason, and when you're leaving, you're all smiles, you're all, everybody now says, oh yeah, I have a better knowledge, so I'm better informed.
So in 30 seconds, give us a sense of the coverage of this vaccine, all divisions of Lagos, all schools.
So for us in Lagos State, our vision is to ensure that no child and no adult is left unvaccinated. And our strategy is being put in place to ensure that we reach everybody within the state. The minimum we can accept is a 95% coverage.
So you're saying you have as much as 1 million doses?
I'll put it for yellow fever. Currently in the States, we have about 22 million doses, because the target is it's 85% of the state's population.
And HPV as well, you have as much?
To cover the girls within that age range, yes.
22 million as well for HPV?
Oh, no. So like I said, for yellow fever, yellow fever is 9 months to 44 years. That's a huge chunk of our population.
Okay.
But for the HPV,
it's 9 to 14.
It's 9 to 14, and that puts us roughly about 1 million girls, because now we're targeting just girls. So there's about 1 million girls, and it's also a 1-dose vaccine. So for girls that received between last year till date are not going to be vaccinated for HPV.
And it's free?
It's free.
All right.
So just wanted to establish that. So it's free, and the immunization officers are coming to your schools and your homes for that immunization. We must anchor at this point, and thank you for coming on the show for this very important awareness, Dr. Adetola Akinpelu, the Immunization Program Officer, Lagos State Primary Healthcare Board. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll switch gears in a very short moment now, to relax with some laughs as our next guest joins us. Stay with us on The Morning Brief. We'll be right back.